Ever since I was a child, I can remember my mom getting mad at me for not doing my homework. I would get so much to the point of not doing my work that I would frustrate my teachers. I would be making A's and B's on all my tests. My overall grade would never be below a C, and yet I still would have only done half my homework. I mean, even in high school, there'd be so many times I would have a fail or a zero, on assignments, and I never understood why my mom cared so much about the individual grade until junior year of high school. Now it's become a normal, common thing for parents to be overbearing and hound their kids to never have a zero on an assignment, but I think parents should let their kids fail an assignment, but not fail a class. It can cause them to drop out of school, not know how to be a good citizen, and to not graduate because of a failed exam. First, according to Robert Kiefer, June 13th, 2014 dropout rate, which in 2014 school year, the United States public high school graduation rate had risen to 80%, but more than 700,000 teens still dropped out each year. Much of the problem can be traced to factors such as poverty, family instability, and dangerous neighborhoods. But many critics also fault schools for failing to engage students and Congress for resisting adequate funding for schools. What does this mean? And what does it have to do with student failure? To many schools and parents, dropping out is one of the biggest failures. And no parent or school should let their kids drop out. But if a parent is overbearing, it can still lead to this probability. But back to the school's failure to engage. Remember back in high school when you would spend 8 hours listening to multiple teachers lecture about one subject, and then they would give you homework to do afterwards. But the thing is that you would only be able to do it at home. And for the most part, you would do this homework. But then there would be some times that you wouldn't. This is exactly what failing to engage is. There's nothing going on to make it interesting or motivate you to do the work. Let's move from dropout rates to something more risky. Politics. Next, with lower voter rate turnout and the outcome from the 2016 presidential election, caused many Chicago high school students to push for civic education classes, which is basically classes on what it takes to be a good citizen and how the Constitution and the government works. According to Clementine M. Civic Education, the November 8th, in the November 8th election, offered further evidence for why the country needs to improve its civic education. The campaign saw climatic rhetoric on both sides, slander of the major party nominees, the spread of fake news, and the rising fear immigrants and others. With emotions running high, it is vital to continue to teach our young people valuable lessons about government and democracy. And what could be worse than failing a school? Failing to do your civic duty. Now going back to school, according to Margaret Sentence Branson, Project Citizen and Education Center for Civic Education from February 1999, wrote, "History teaches us that few countries have sustained democratic governments for prolonged periods, a lesson that we are sometimes inclined to forget." Basically, going on to support the idea that voter turnout rates need to increase in the younger adults and why civic education classes are needed in other courses students should not fail. Lastly, graduating high school all because you failed one test. Does that seem fair to you? Well, in Maryland, it is a real thing. According to standardized high school exit exams, should all United States require high school students to pass standardized exit exam to graduate. In June 2009, public high school seniors in Maryland became the first students in the state who had to pass an exit exam in order to graduate. An exit exam is a test on which students must demonstrate their mastery of basic skills and academic skills. Another standardized test to put stress on students that is a pass or fail to show if they learned anything. In conclusion, failing to do your homework and failing a class are two very different things. Don't treat failing an assignment like failing a class or dropping out of school, not being a good citizen, or even failing a standardized test. Instead, let them learn that failing an assignment or test is okay, that their future does not depend on that one thing. Once I learned that homework can help my grade and that the individual grade is not as important as the overall, it was less stressful in school.